The wind howled across the open plains as dusk settled in, painting the horizon with streaks of amber and rose. A lone cabin stood against the silence, its smoke rising lazily from the chimney, the only sign of life for miles around. Inside, a cowboy sat at his wooden table, staring at the empty chair across from him. His life had been built on dust, cattle and long days under the sun, but the nights were lonelier than he ever dared to admit. He had once dreamed of a family, of laughter filling these four walls, but years of loss and betrayal had hardened his heart. Still, he kept the place tidy, kept a key hanging by the door, almost as if some part of him still hoped for company. That night, as the storm began to roll in and the chill deepened, he heard a sound he hadn't heard in years, a knock on his door. Slow, hesitant, almost too faint to notice. He rose cautious yet curious and pulled the door open. There she stood, a young woman draped in rags, her hair tangled, her skin pale from the cold, her eyes filled with both fear and determination. She clutched her arms around herself as if trying to hold the last fragments of her strength together. For a moment, neither spoke. The cowboy's rugged face remained unreadable, but his heart stirred at the sight of someone who looked so much like the emptiness he had carried inside. "I don't mean trouble," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. "I just need a place. Just for tonight." Her words cut through him like a blade. He saw the desperation in her eyes, the kind of desperation he knew too well. With a nod, he stepped aside, letting her cross the threshold into the warmth of his cabin. She moved carefully, as if afraid one wrong step would send her back out into the cold world she came from. He closed the door behind her, shutting out the storm, and for the first time in years, his cabin no longer felt like a prison. It felt alive. She sat near the fire, stretching her hands toward the flames, trembling as the warmth reached her bones. The cowboy poured her a cup of water and set some bread on the table. She ate slowly, her eyes darting to him now and then, unsure if trust was something she could afford. "What's your name?" he asked finally, his voice deep but gentle. She hesitated before answering, as though the truth had long been a dangerous thing to reveal. "Clara," he nodded. "I'm James." Silence fell again, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Yet in that silence something began to shift. James watched her, saw the dirt on her clothes, the scars hidden beneath the fabric, the way her shoulders hunched as if she carried the weight of an entire world. And Clara, though cautious, saw something in him too, loneliness, but not the cruel kind. The kind that longed for something real, something worth holding on to. Hours passed, and she finally spoke of her past. A home shattered by greed, a family lost to hardship, and townsfolk who turned their backs when she needed them most. She had wandered, searching for work, for kindness, for anything that would make her feel human again. And now she had ended up here, at the door of a man she didn't know, praying he would not send her back into the night. James listened without interruption, his rough hands folded on the table, his gaze steady. When she finished, the silence was heavier than before. Finally, he stood, walked to the wall, and took down the old iron key that had hung there for years untouched. He stepped toward her and held it out. Clara looked at him confused, her trembling hands hesitant to take it. "What's this?" she asked softly. His voice was steady, though beneath it was a vulnerability he rarely showed. "It's the key to this house. You don't have to wander anymore. You don't have to knock again. If you choose to stay, this can be your home too." Her eyes filled with tears, the kind born not from sorrow but from the shock of unexpected kindness. She shook her head slightly, unable to believe what she was hearing. "But I've got nothing to give," she whispered. James smiled faintly, a rare smile that softened his weathered features. "Sometimes giving isn't about what you have. Sometimes it's just about being here. I've had enough empty nights. I don't need riches. I just need someone who understands what it feels like to be broken and still chooses to stand." Clara stared at the key, then at him, and for the first time in years, she felt the walls around her heart begin to crack. She reached out, her fingers brushing against his as she took it, holding it like it was more precious than gold. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not love at first sight, but something deeper, a promise of belonging, a second chance. Over the next days, Clara stayed. She helped with chores, slowly finding her place in the rhythm of his life. She cooked small meals with what little they had, mended the worn shirts he had long given up on, and each night as the fire burned, they shared stories that chipped away at the silence that had haunted them both. James found himself smiling more, laughing even, at the way she brought color into the gray corners of his world, and Clara found strength in the steadiness of his presence, a reminder that even after loss, life could still hold meaning. She no longer wore her rags like chains, but as a reminder of where she had come from and how far she was determined to go. And every time she looked at the key, she remembered that knock on the door, the moment her life changed forever. For the cowboy who once lived only in loneliness had given her more than shelter. He had given her a new life, built not on what they lacked, but on what they could create together. And as the seasons turned and the plains bloomed with wildflowers, the cabin was no longer a place of silence. It was a home, filled with hope, resilience, and the quiet, powerful bond of two souls who had once been lost but had found each other.